Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that's better, Charlie, right? Now, everything is good with the world. I will tell you, see, this was going to be a secret. Nobody was going to know this. I just made a little bit of a screw up. I plugged my mic into the wrong spot. So we went to start the show and there was nothing there but a buzz, but all is good now. See, you didn't even need to know that. But in the spirit of full, letting you enjoy the full experience of the show, I will let you know that. Welcome, my friends, to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine Show. My name is Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us as we once again continue this weekly 3-hour celebration of the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle, primarily right here in the great state of Michigan. But occasionally we go beyond. As I look at this week's rundown, we're going to be in Michigan the entire week, though. From every corner of the state. Because we're on so many different stations across the state, from the southern part of the state to the UP, I try to bounce around with our guests, and I try to bounce around with our topics as much as possible to cover as many different topics as possible of interest to you. I'm not always successful, but that is what I try to do. And when you have a state like Michigan, where it is so geographically diverse, it creates an interesting situation because what's going on in the UP might not be necessarily what's going on in the southern tier of counties. But we try our best, right? Try our best. I have not, and I'm disappointed to say this, since we last talked, I have not been out deer hunting. I know, I should be, right? I should be. But life has gotten in the way, even for me, even for a guy who can pretty much control my own schedule, and I can justify heading out on the water or in the woods as being a work-related activity. Sometimes life gets in the way. I got some projects going on in the house right now, as maybe you do as well, with Christmas coming up. And this is actually a very busy time of year for me, work-related. The end of the year, making plans for new things coming up in 2022. For example, one of those things is the addition of a Primal Tree Stands podcast. We're going to add that to the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network. So things like that take a little bit of time. They're all good. It's all good, but just things that get in the way of me maybe getting out in the woods or on the water. I haven't given up. I haven't given up my goal of trying to shoot a big doe. But realistically, time is starting to run out. Maybe I can get out there now between Christmas and the New Year. We'll see. We'll see. This is an interesting time of year, though, isn't it? Weather plays such a big role. Like as I'm in the studio here right now, we got snow. It's coming down pretty good, and it's cold. But then when I look at the forecast, we've got a big warming trend coming in here. So you never quite know, right? You never quite know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you. And this time of year, that plays such a big role in our outdoor activities. Are you going to be able to get on the water? Are you going to be able to get in the ice? And, of course, that's going to depend, once again, on where you live in our state and what Mother Nature throws at us. And I've always said that one of the things I love most about these outdoor pursuits is the fact that we're not in charge of them. We don't have the ultimate say. In a world, it sounded like a trailer for a movie. In the world we live in today, where we are so used to being able to push a button and see a response, to swipe a screen and see a reaction, to click a link and something happens immediately, we're used to getting immediate gratification And we're used to being, in a lot of ways, kind of in control of our day-to-day activities, no matter how mundane they might be. But when you get outdoors, that changes. And that's what I like. That's the appeal. When you get outdoors, you've got Mother Nature to worry about. You've got the weather to worry about. Maybe it's going to be too warm. Maybe it's going to be too cold. Maybe the wind direction's going to be, maybe the wind's going to be from the wrong direction. Maybe it's just going to be blowing too hard for you to get out on the water. And then you've got the critters to take into account. They live out there all the time. They're in that water all the time. They're in those woods all the time. And we go out there, no matter how hardcore or how much knowledge we think we have, the odds are stacked against us. Because when we go out there pursuing, chasing fish and game, we're in their environment, in their world, and we're trying to take advantage of that. So that's stacked against us as well. But that's why I love this whole outdoor world. Because it gets us out of our comfort zone. It gets us away from immediate gratification. It's kind of nice once in a while to get out there and be a little bit uncomfortable. To get wet, to get rained on, to feel a cold wind on the back of your neck. I mean, we strive to be comfortable out there, but it's good to get out and just to realize there's something different and something bigger than what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And that we don't have control over it. And I love that. So what is going on right now across our great state of Michigan? The late deer season. And whether that means a bow to you. If you're in the UP, it doesn't mean a crossbow. We know that. But maybe that means a bow. Maybe it means a muzzleloader. Maybe in the southern part of the state, it means you're out there with whatever. Whatever was legal during rifle season. And this is a great time of year if you can stand the weather, if you can find some food. That's where the deer are going to be heading right now. They're going to be looking for food. What else? Rabbit hunting. Anybody out rabbit hunting yet? I hope so, especially now once you get some snow. Beagles and bunnies, I think, are part of our Michigan outdoor tradition. You don't see it as much anymore. There are a lot of things that you don't see as much anymore, that things are changing. Our outdoor pursuits are gradually evolving. I think there's less and less emphasis on small game hunting and more on, deer, bear, turkeys. And I fall victim to that myself. I tend to forget about these outdoor activities that got me hooked on the outdoors in the first place. Squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting that I grew up doing. I don't do it anymore. But rabbit hunting's going on right now. Predator hunting. Now that the firearm season is over, you're going to see a lot more people out there for predator hunting. That has grown tremendously in our state. When I say predators, I'm talking primarily coyotes. Now, there's also fox hunting. There's also bobcat hunting. But coyote is the main thing. And most of the hardcore coyote hunters these days are out there after dark. And they're using some pretty high-tech gear. It used to be they'd go out there with these real bright lights and just try to get the animal's eyes to reflect in the lights. Now they're out there with thermal imaging. Really, really high-tech. But they've become very effective and proficient. Although predator hunting is one of those things that you're probably not going to be successful the first time out. If you are, you're lucky. Speaking of things you're probably not going to be successful on first time out, trapping. Trapping season's really getting fired up now. I have so much respect for trappers. I think they are the most knowledgeable outdoorsmen and women out there. Because think about this. A firearm deer hunter, for example, only has to get an animal within a couple hundred yards and they can make a shot. A bow hunter, 30 to 40 yards. But if you're a trapper, you've got to get that critter to come into what, a 6-inch square box? A 2-inch round pad on a trap? I mean, you've got to really be dialed in. You've got to really know the game that you're pursuing. And then the work involved in setting a trap line, checking a trap line, and when you're successful, taking care of those hides, it's a lot of work. But it's an activity that's been around for generations. And let's not forget about fishing right now. Whether it's open water, again, depending on what part of the state you live in or what Mother Nature brings, either open water or ice fishing. I've seen some reports of ice fishing in the UP. They're still fishing open water down Lake Erie, Saginaw Bay, Lake St. Clair. Of course, the rivers on the west side of the state for steelhead. I'm getting some pretty good reports of people surf fishing and fishing off the piers. There's just a lot going on. If you can find the time to take advantage of it, which, as I told you, this past week, I haven't been able to. And that's a struggle. That's a struggle we all have to deal with, right? I talked to the retired guys. Oh, I thought when I retired I'd do nothing but hunting and fish. But the challenge is finding the time and then being committed to it. Because that time spent outside is good quality time that you will never regret. Coming up after the break here on this week's Outdoor Magazine show, we're checking in with DNR biologist Brian Mastenbrook about our Michigan Elk Herd. The December season is open as you're listening to the show. Ted Harpham of Darton Archery, Jim Felgenauer down on Lake St. Clair, Eric Hilliard of the Pure Michigan Hunt, and Ken Burzynski talks about trapping right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on WZTK in Alpena. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. And you can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. And believe it or not, as of the time we're in the studio right now, they're still launching boats, at least maybe not this morning, but as of yesterday, launching boats to get out on Saginaw Bay. But check, give them a call. Check out their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com, because conditions can change, obviously, this time of year very, very quickly. But great people, great facilities, great location. What more could you ask? linwoodbeachmarina.com. When I was talking earlier in the first segment of the show about all that our state has to offer, and I think we are so blessed to live here in this state. Is everything perfect? Of course not. But it's a great place if you love the outdoors with the hunting and fishing opportunities, recreational opportunities, and the wildlife that we have here. And I'm not just talking about bear and turkeys and deer and stuff like that, but we've got some pretty cool critters here. And some that people don't even realize. And I'm talking now about the Michigan Elk Herd. We have a viable, strong, wonderful elk herd centered around the Pigeon River Forest in the northern part of the lower. Brian Mastenbrook is a DNR wildlife biologist who's been working with that herd for years and years, and I think he knows more about it than probably anybody in the state. And he joins us now in the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Brian, welcome back. How have you been?
Hi, Mike. I've been well. Thanks. How about you?
Good. But you've got, as folks are hearing the show this weekend, you're involved in your December elk hunt.
It starts on Saturday, yeah. So we're winding up and getting ready to go.
How many years now, in recent history, have you guys been doing this elk hunt, Brian?
1984 was the start of the recent hunts, so we're coming up on 40 years. Yeah.
Wow. And how is the herd doing?
The herd is stable. Population is stable. Habitat's stable. So it's doing well. We don't have any rampant diseases. We get a touch of TB every now and then, but doing well.
Why, and I'm so glad to hear that, but are elk in some way naturally protected from some of these diseases that the whitetails get, or have we just been lucky?
Well, we've just been lucky. CWD, elk can get CWD. We have elk that they have brainworm. We have brainworm elk every year, half dozen or so of those. They have accidents. They get bacterial infections. We have things happen to them. We have some natural mortality, but it's not a significant driver of the herd, and so that's what we're lucky about.
How do you keep track of these animals? I mean, I know they're big, beautiful, majestic critters, but still, you got a lot of country you're trying to keep an eye on.
Well, overall, we do an aerial survey, and we're, again, gearing up to do that this year. We couldn't do it last year because of COVID, but we're going to be doing it this year if our snow holds. We'll be doing that the second, third week of January. We fly the entire elk range in a grid, 2 by 6 mile cells that we do every quarter mile, every eighth mile we do a grid on them. And I added up the miles once, and it's like flying from Mackinac City to Key West, back to Mackinac City, back to Key West, and then to the north end of the Florida Panhandle. So it's a lot of hours in a small plane to get this done, but we do it. We run 2 at a time and 2 observers in the back, and we just go. So that's coming up, and that's how we keep track of the overall herd number and kind of spatial distribution. We get a snapshot of that during this time too. And are you
needing the snow for visibility?
Yeah, they just stick out so much more when there's snow on the ground, and you can see tracks too. So you're kind of cued into their elk in the area. If it's just brown, they're brown too, and it's very difficult to see them unless they're right beneath you. But when they're brown and the background is white, it's just so much easier.
How big are these elk, Brian?
Well, a bull weighs up to 1,000 pounds, on the hoof. Generally, cows are 400 to 600, and bulls are 600 to 850 or so. But they get bigger, and some are smaller, and of course calves are smaller yet. But they're a big animal. They're not quite as big as a moose, but coming close.
Several times the size of a whitetail.
Yeah, at least a couple, 3 anyway.
Yeah. So when you got a critter that size, I guess I'm thinking they're going to pretty much do what they want. I mean, as far as agricultural situations, do they even stop for a fence, or do they just jump it or walk through it, or what kind of problems does that cause for you guys as managers?
They don't jump many fences. They're not jumpers like deer are, maybe because they're so big, but they do go through fences if people don't have them constructed well. A good electric fence will stop them. And we work with farmers regularly. We actually employ someone through the summer months primarily to work with farmers and other people that are trying to grow crops for cash that might have elk and problems. We help them set up. We have just fences that we lend them with electric chargers, and we have, that person will come out and actively harass animals if need be. We have other scaring devices that we use. One's called a Scary Man. It's kind of got a timer on it, and it hooks to a car battery and electric fan, and every 20 minutes or so that timer clicks over and this thing blows up and the arms wave, kind of like you see in front of a car dealership. And so that's been somewhat effective. It's kind of sounds silly, but it works. So we do a whole bunch of different stuff for people that try and keep those problems at a minimum.
Well, and that's part of the goal, right? Is you want a healthy herd, but you got to keep it under control so the elk-human interaction is acceptable.
Yeah, and we try and, our goal is to be more than acceptable. It's to be positive. We want people to think of elk positively and not like some people think of deer and some people think of geese. They just think of the bad things about them and wish they weren't around. But we work really hard to keep this elk profile as a positive one. And most ag people, they don't mind elk. They like elk. They just don't want them in their crops. And so if they're out of their crops, they're okay with them, generally. So that's what we work for.
And that, I would imagine, is one of the main reasons for having a couple of hunts every fall, is to keep the herd under control?
Sure. That's the only thing that controls the numbers and the distribution. If we did not hunt, we'd have a lot more elk spread out over a lot more area, and they'd be getting into more trouble. We wouldn't be able to keep that positive image of them if they were across a broader landscape.
So where is the range? Where are we going to find elk in Michigan?
The bulk of it is between I-75 on the west, M68 on the north, M33 on the east, and M32 on the south. So northeast of Gaylord, southeast of Indian River, northwest of Atlanta. So that general area, like you said, the Pigeon River country and area around it.
And how did they get here, Brian?
By train. They were brought out in actually 1916, I think, and were put in pens down by Houghton Lake. They were held for a little while, and then they did a release. They did a couple different releases of elk. And this was at a time when, the early 1900s, a lot of herds had been decimated by market hunting and by unregulated hunting. People were killing them for food or just killing them because they were competing with them. And this was kind of an era of restoration. So the federal government was making elk available to any state that wanted them. And Michigan took them up on it. And that was the basis of the herd we have today.
I'm glad you kind of went down this avenue a little bit, because I was thinking, boy, back in the early 1900s, I don't think, well, I know conservation wasn't what it is today, and to have the insight and foresight into trying to reestablish a Michigan elk herd, I mean, that was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, and it actually was a era. I mean, we didn't. Of course, the DNR didn't exist, but there was a conservation organization at the time, and they actually had pens with deer from Europe. They had red deer, they had roe deer, they had all these different critters that they were thinking of releasing to try and kind of repopulate the wildlife in Michigan. And luckily, we stuck with a native animal and have that up here. But it was a real conservation era. It's quite fascinating to read about it. This is just post Teddy Roosevelt. Refuges had been established. Controls were being put on. There was a lot going on at the time.
And elk are obviously native to Michigan, but what happened to wipe them out?
Well, there were different subspecies. It was a prairie elk. They were mostly in southern Michigan. They ventured up into the north when there were big fires, and so big grasslands. But they were wiped out by, like I said before, market hunting. People were clearing the land and trying to grow crops, and if they saw an elk out there, they didn't want that elk eating their crops, and they could take it. There was no laws regulating that early on, so they were thought to be gone by the late 1800s, and then people started doing stuff. That's when that's part of what kicked off the whole conservation organization or movement.
Brian, hang tight. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with DNR wildlife biologist Brian Mastenbrook. The website for the DNR is michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Like I said, we've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to wrap up my conversation with Brian, learning more about these animals. Maybe, I think probably September is the best time to go out and see them, but is it worth a trip now to go see them? And where would you find them? And just why they're such fascinating critters and how cool it is that we have a Michigan elk herd. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK, that's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM, 1380 AM. And north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning Archery has been a leader in the industry for 75 years. And they continue to innovate and come up with new products and new designs and new gear. I've got a Boning top mount quiver mount on my Darton crossbow. I love it. Now, you think about this. A piece of gear for a modern-day crossbow, and the company was started by Roland Boning, who invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to, at the time, what were wooden or aluminum arrow shafts. They just continue to do a great job. They're a Michigan-based company. You know I love that. Great products for target archers and bow hunters as well. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. While you're online, head on over to this website, michigan.gov/DNR. Really, it's a lot. You could spend an entire day and never get through the whole DNR website. We're talking now with a DNR wildlife biologist, Brian Mastenbrook, who's been working with the Michigan Elk Herd for a very, very long time. And Brian, I've heard you talk about these animals before, and I know that you really have a very keen interest for these big critters. What is it about them that kind of has you fascinated, even after all these years?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's wrapped up in the experience you have with them, I think. And for most people, they're, and me, it wasn't my first exposure, but seeing that animal, that big animal, perhaps hearing it during the fall when they're bugling, it's just something neat. And frankly, it's partly the landscape they're in, the Pigeon River country, the Atlanta forest area. It's kind of unique in Michigan and how varied it is, and how you can go from a pretty little river to a swamp to a hardwood ridge, and not have to go too far. Just you're on the same road and you can see all three of those things in pretty short order. So it's a combination of things, I think, that make it elk really special in Michigan.
Are those roads kept open in the wintertime? Can people go up and cruise the Pigeon River country this time of year and see those animals?
You can get up. Many of the roads are open, certainly not all of them, but you can come up and look. You're going to need to plan to get off the road to really have a chance to see them, because they're not going to be very close to the roads mostly.
But there's no restriction, right? You can just get out and wander around up there. There's nothing to prevent people from that.
Nope, state land. It's open to use all year round, and yeah, you can get out and wander around, and it's a nice time to do it because there's no bugs and there's not many other people out there either. You can choose your place to go and go there, and pretty much be alone. So kind of special.
This weekend, as people are hearing the show, you're involved in your December elk hunt. What are those hunts like? Are they? I know they're fair chase, but are they hard hunts? Are they easy hunts? And are most people using rifles, Brian?
Yeah, the majority of people use rifles. Some bring bows, and people have killed them with bows, but mostly rifles. You've got 1,000 animals over about 1,000 square miles, and you got 160 people chasing them. The thing is, the animals are herded up to some degree, so you're going to have 30 square miles with none and 1 square mile with 30. So it's not an insignificant task. This year, we've got good snow on the ground right now. We've got over a foot of snow, and it's going to be tough going. It's not quite good enough for snowshoes, and it's deep enough that you're going to know it at the end of the day if you've been walking all day through this. So it's a hunt. Some people have, and you see some people don't have quite the hunt experience that you might think is appropriate. They might drive down a road and see one off the road and shoot it. but many people walk miles and miles and miles and get their elk, after they put some work into it. Most of them are not killed. I say this in the orientation. Most animals are not killed in the first day. And so you better be ready to hunt 2, 3, 4 days if you want to be sure and get one.
So it's not a guarantee then? It's not a guarantee?
No, it's definitely hunting. You can increase your chances by hiring a guide, by knowing someone in the area, by doing a lot of good scouting, but it's a hunt.
And I think one good way to increase your chances, too, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, but this Pure Michigan hunt, apply for that. You can apply multiple times, and every little bit helps because, what hunter in Michigan doesn't want a Michigan bull elk tag? Right,
and you get more than that with a Pure Michigan hunt. So, yeah, that is another great opportunity. And we had a fella a couple years ago that he drew both an elk tag in the drawing, and he won the Pure Michigan hunt.
I hope he played the lottery too that day. Oh,
well,
man.
He was able to transfer one of the licenses to his brother, and so he and his brother had a hunt of a lifetime. So that kind of stuff can happen. It's just statistics, but
Brian, hate to cut you off. I'm absolutely out of time. Got to let you go. Brian Mastenbrook of the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Michigan elk, he knows them inside and out. They're beautiful critters. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on 2 stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. Carry this thing all the time. And you probably do as well. A knife is one of the most versatile tools you can have. It's a daily carry tool. You can use it for so many different things. And I'm not just talking about field dressing animals, but of course that's part of it. I really like Rapid River knives, handmade by craftsmen in the UP in Rapid River. Check out their website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. You can order online. I don't know if you can get one in time for Christmas. If you want to do that, head to their showroom in Rapid River. Really, really great people. Chris Durson does a wonderful job, and they make a great product. And they're a family-owned, Michigan-based company. You know I love that, rapidriverknifeworks.com. Speaking of Michigan-based companies, a company I've had a relationship with for a long, long time, Darton Archery. Michigan-based Darton Archery in Hale, Michigan. I've shot Dartons for years. First bow I ever hunted with was a Darton SL50. That's how far back it goes. These days, I'm using a Darton Toxin crossbow, a 100 RD. Ted Harpham is one of the guys behind Darton Archery these days, and he joins me on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ted, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Hi, Mike. You're doing fantastic. Thank you.
How are things at Darton? I ask because we're coming into the second archery season. Christmas just around the corner. The ATA, the Archery Trade Association show is coming up. You guys went through a change in ownership a while ago. So what's the status?
Oh, Mike, I'll tell you, it's been nothing short of amazing. Of course, Randy and his team at Black Eagle had acquired Darton as of the first of the year. And since then, all the dealers that are out there that are Black Eagle dealers always now have an opportunity to be a Darton dealer. So just through a kind of osmosis, we've picked up an enormous amount of dealers and good dealers all over the country where we hadn't had any support before. Now we're very, very strong in Texas. We're very, very strong in Louisiana. We're very, very strong in a bunch of other states that we just never had gotten out to before. So, yeah, things are going really, really well.
Well, the question these days, though, with everybody in every business is, can you make enough product to satisfy the demand?
Well, we're in the same boat with everybody. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're doing well. We found some avenues that we were able to get some materials that that weren't available to other bow manufacturers. That's really helped us out. So that's been a large help to us on a lot of the products. But, we're changing everything. We're, this new style riser, we're going with the 7075 aluminum, the 7075 on the cams. We're changing a bunch of stuff on all of our bows. And the shootability that we had before versus the shootability that we're using now is just night and day. So we're changing our decoration department right now. So we're going to be doing lots of different stuff in our decoration department. They can keep an eye on the website at www.dartonarchery.com for all the new changes. We're really trying to keep up with that. So it's exciting, very exciting.
So are we looking at new models then for 2022?
The new models for 2022 are out now currently. And as like anybody else in the industry, we're always working on our 23s. But all of our bows currently are ready to go, from the Maverick to Cyclone, the Tempest, the Vegas, the new Mentor E and the Mentor D are all, bows that are 2022s and ready to ship. What
happened to the old days of archery companies unveiling the new bows at the ATA show?
Mike, we think about that this time of year almost daily. It used to be that was the big play for everybody to go to the ATA show. They'd get to see all the new bows, shoot all the new bows. Nothing was ever brought out, early. But now, we have companies that are announcing new bows in in July instead of January.
That makes it hard for consumers. It makes it hard for manufacturers. It makes it hard. It puts your retailers in a tough spot when companies do that.
It really puts everybody in a tough spot. There is nothing good about it. Everybody's trying to get the jump on everybody else for something new, but then the dealer's caught with inventory that's older inventory and not current inventory. The guy wants to wait until the following year to see what, it's just a bunch. It's a hiccup.
So are you guys, though, basically forced to go to the ATA show to make a presence, especially when you're rejuvenating the company, or can you just stay away from it?
No, we absolutely want to go to the ATA show. Randy with the arrows, and we also have Conquest stabilizers, which is great. We've built a stable of really top-shelf shooters, the Jimmy Lutzes, the Joseph Gaza. We've got a bunch of great guys out there now. We've got a great sales force that we've put together, and so we're real excited about going to the ATA show.
Excellent. And with Christmas coming up, it's really hard to buy a compound for somebody because you don't know what they're looking for. But a crossbow is a great option because a crossbow will fit anybody, and you can get them. They're out there now, Ted?
Right. Yes, sir.
All right.
We've got the Toxin 100 RD that you're shooting, which is a fantastic crossbow. It's priced perfectly to fit into the Christmas budgets, and it's a great shooter.
And the website, dartonarchery.com, dartonarchery.com. Ted, always a pleasure. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Ted Harpham of Darton Archery, a Michigan-based company and has been from the beginning, and I did stray. There were a couple of years when I strayed, and they were good bows. Face it, most of the bows out there these days are good bows, but I like this Michigan connection. I like working with Michigan companies and shooting Michigan products. DartonArchery.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, and we'll check in with Jim Felgenauer. He's down on Lake St. Clair, and then Eric Hilliard of the DNR, and this week's Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on 32 AM and FM radio stations across the great state of Michigan, sitting here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. I know you're getting sick of hearing that, but I have to make this distinction. This is a radio show. First and foremost, Outdoor Magazine Radio is recorded, produced, distributed, syndicated as a radio show. And I make that distinction because, podcasting is a wonderful tool, but everybody's got a podcast. Everybody. I've got several of them. But there aren't many statewide syndicated outdoor radio shows in the country. And so to have one here in Michigan, in such a wonderful state, my home state, the state I love, on so many broadcast outlets is indeed a blessing, and I want to make that distinction. And I do think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station. Always, always. But if you can't, if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state that you can't get the show on your local station, isn't it nice to know there is a podcast version available? And that's nothing more than the audio, the sound, the conversation from the radio show made available somewhere else. Basically anywhere else you get your podcast. It's on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The Facebook page is on Amazon Music, Audible, TuneIn, Stitcher, Odyssey, all the places. Any place you get a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine show. And I even put it on YouTube. And I know it doesn't make any sense because it's just audio, but I put it on YouTube, and we get people who check it out every week on YouTube. So I would encourage you to do that. I also do podcasts for several of the companies I work with: Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest, Polar Craft Boats, Shadowhunter Blinds. We're adding a new Primal Tree Stands podcast coming up in January, just kind of putting the infrastructure for that together now. I'll let you know when we premiere that, when we debut that. But regardless of how you are hearing my voice, whether it's the broadcast version of the show, the podcast, I got to thank you. I do certainly appreciate it. I've been doing this a long time. I never dreamed when I started in broadcasting 40 years ago that I would be doing what I am. But it's a blessing. It's wonderful. I get to talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. My job is to talk about the things that people like you and I love to do. I'd be talking about this stuff if it wasn't my job. And I have you to thank for that, because if you weren't listening, if you weren't following me on social media, I wouldn't have this opportunity. So first and foremost, I always thank God first and foremost. But I have to thank you as well, and I do appreciate you being along with us. I often say one of the best things about this job is the people that I've had a chance to meet over the years. I really, some top-notch, very interesting, very knowledgeable people. And right now I'm thinking about Jim Felgenauer. Jim is a lifelong hunter and angler, in my opinion, an expert hunter and angler. Very, very knowledgeable about sturgeon fishing, intimately involved in the St. Clair chapter of Sturgeon for Tomorrow, and a hardcore hunter as well. Listen, if it happens in the outdoors, Jim Felgenauer has probably taken advantage of it or has plans to take advantage of it, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jim, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, Mike. Thanks for the fine compliments coming from you. That means a lot.
Well, Jim, you are extraordinarily well respected around the state, man. You're one of those guys who doesn't just talk about things and doesn't just get out there and enjoy the outdoors, but you're willing to put the time in behind the scenes. You're involved in all these different boards and committees and groups and chairmanships and stuff. So you're putting your time in.
Yeah, Mike, and you have to be. Just as an example of that, I recently drove to Lansing. It's over 2 hours one way, for my 5 minutes of fame in front of the Natural Resources Commission. And it's important to be a part of the process. I was there to speak on some proposed steelhead regulations. And I was there as the chair of the Lake Erie Committee, but there was a amendment introduced to put greater restrictions on steelhead harvest in some of the rivers on the west side of the state. And scientifically, the harvest is not affecting steelhead populations. Biologically, the issue is with the forage base or something occurring out in the lake. But, this restriction seems to be popular amongst some anglers and guides. So if this regulation passes, it's going to be on the basis of a popular vote of anglers and guides. It's not going to be biologically based. So if you are opposed to greater restrictions, then you need to have your voice heard. You need to be active. You need to write letters. You need to show up.
Now I'm getting you, because I couldn't figure out why an East Side Fishing Association, fishing group, or organization would care about regulations on the West Side. But I see what you're saying. It's a bigger picture issue.
It's a bigger picture issue, Mike, and I was there, frankly, at the request of the fisheries chief, and because there was some feeling that maybe the NRC was trying to circumvent the normal process, that they were trying to ramrod these proposals through, and that goes to a proposal on the Saginaw River with actually increasing fishing opportunities, that the fisheries committees and the DNR had not had a fair opportunity to comment or chime in. So there was some feeling that the NRC was trying to circumvent the process, which wasn't the case at all. So, and I was assured by the chair that, especially with the Steelhead regulation, that the Nyberg amendment was simply to open discussions, that, it wasn't the finish line, that it was in fact the starting line. So then we have a very good NRC, and the reason I know that is because I'm there. And we hear comments from people that, are opposed to the DNR and the NRC, and those people obviously do not interact with those folks on a regular basis.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. I hate the DNR. NRC is a bunch of, then get involved. Then quit griping about it and do something.
Yeah, and the point there is that, there are a lot of people that do write letters to the NRC, and the fisheries chief reads those letters as well, and they make a difference. If you are in the silent majority, what happens is the vocal minority appears to be the majority.
Yeah.
Because the other people are silent, and what you do and what you say counts.
What is that process? What is that experience like? I almost said testifying, but when you get to speak before the Natural Resource Commission, describe that.
Well, Mike, you typically only get 5 minutes, okay, which is not very long. That goes by very quickly. And the best thing to do is be prepared, usually with a page of notes or things. And about 1 page of material is what you might get through in 5 minutes of time. So, you just sit before them, and typically, sometimes they will ask a question. Rarely do they comment. But there are some advantages. And let me go to this DNR bashing thing again, too, Mike, and I hate to...
That's fine.
I'm trying to give people some insight here as how to get things done. You get things done by developing positive relationships with people, not by being adversaries. And you're not always going to agree, but those relationships are important. And one of the advantages is, during breaks and whatever, these people come up to me and say hi. They know who I am. I talk to them individually, personally. So I actually get a little more than my 5 minutes.
You're working the system, Jim.
Yeah, they're friends of mine. Like, they're good people, and they do a great job.
Listen, I don't want to get too far off track here. We got about a minute left in the segment, but people could say, well, then, Felgenhauer, you're part of this cronyism system. You're part of the whole political problem, too, then.
Well, that's a life lesson, Mike. That's just not a political thing. What you have to remember is this. The politics is that, these people have a boss. The fisheries chief works for the director, who works for the governor. You can't always disagree with your boss.
Yeah.
And the NRC doesn't work for the governor. So the politics don't really show up at the NRC. but they do show up somewhat in the DNR, because you just can't be disagreeable with your boss all the time. That doesn't just go for the DNR; that goes for wherever you work.
Life in general. Hang tight, Jim. We got to take a break. We're talking with Jim Felgenauer. Well, we got a little off topic. We'll get back on track after the break here. But Jim's a very interesting guy, as I said, and he's not afraid to tell people what he thinks. But his decisions, his thought process is always very well thought out, and he always puts the resource and the biology above the politics, as it should be. But isn't always. More after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra, 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in Tawas on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. What does that mean? Versa Skins, again, a Michigan-based company. They make great quality hunting clothes in a particular pattern. But what if you need to go to blaze orange for firearm season? Or what if you want a waterfowl pattern? Or what if you're out predator hunting and you want a snow camo? In the past, you had to go out and buy a new set of hunting clothes. Not now. With Versa Skins, they've got a shell that you zip on the outer shell and snap on the outer shell, and it takes about 2 minutes, or not even that, it takes about a minute, and you've changed the skin for the season you're in. I think it's ingenious. They're very warm. They're very well built. And I would encourage you to check out the website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. And now they're made in sizes, what do they go up to, 4X? No, 6X even. So they can cover you, literally. They can cover anybody. Versaskins.com. Talking now with Jim Felgenauer. In our first part of our conversation, we kind of got into the weeds a little bit about behind-the-scenes operation as far as management here in Michigan. Jim, let's talk about things that are a little bit more fun. What have you been up to lately? You been having any fun in the outdoors?
Yeah, Mike, I get to stumble around in the woods once in a while. In fact, I'm happy to be talking to you this morning here. I was out yesterday, and you wouldn't think a cell phone could roll, but mine rolled right down into the water yesterday. So I managed to get it dried out in time for our chat this morning. So, what
were you doing? Were you hunting or fishing or what?
No, I was just out scouting a new deer hunting area here, just looking at some ground, and I stumbled a little bit. I grabbed for a small sapling, dropped my phone, and it landed on edge, and it rolled just like a bowling ball.
How is your season going? You tagged out?
No, I haven't hunted much, Mike. I have seen some nice bucks here during the archery season. I had sitting in a little ground blind, just a little brushy screen, and had a very nice spike. Saw me, was curious about me, and walked into about 5 yards. He was just looking right at me, and he turned toward me, and he was just curious, and never got an opportunity. And then on the opening day of the gun season, at some distance through the binoculars, I saw probably the biggest buck I've seen in my entire life in the wild. So, but no shots, and just kind of laying low here. So,
you still hunting with a handgun?
Once in a while, yeah. The black powder handgun,
yeah,
and it's a great tool. Some years ago, I sold my black powder rifle and was looking to replace it, and I replaced it with a CVA hand cannon, which is very accurate, and I put a red dot sight on it, which works very, very well. And it's good to about 100 yards, and I've shot a couple of deer with it.
No kidding, 100 yards?
Sure.
Wow. What about fishing? You guys had a tremendous, well, I guess you're still having a tremendous sturgeon fishery on the St. Clair River this year, haven't you?
Yeah, Mike, and I talked to Andrew Briggs over at the fisheries office on Lake St. Clair. We had a record year again for tag returns and patch distribution. We do a cooperator patch, and I think last I talked to Andrew, we had 67 patches issued this year. And each of those anglers also, and here again, the DNR does a great job, and Andrew doesn't have to do this, but each of those anglers gets a history of his fish. So if that fish has been recaptured 9 times, he gets along with that cooperator patch, a history listing all of those recaptures and how much the fish has grown. So yeah, the great job over there. Andrew does a great job there, and we are learning how to do some daytime fishing. I had a nice trip with some folks, and we once this traffic settles down on the river in the fall. And you can get out during the day, you can catch sturgeon. We kind of figured out side scan works very well for locating fish, and you set up on those fish, and we are figuring out a good daytime sturgeon bite now.
Side scan for sturgeon. Now, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. We set up on a group of fish and started out with a double header, and you might see that coming up in the springtime here. So,
well, can you say where? I mean, you were out with some heavy hitters.
Yeah. I had some people from In Fisherman Television come out, and I spent a day with them, and actually a couple of days, and we poked around a little bit. And had a blast, and that's going to be on the Outdoor Channel sometime in the spring.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. It's cool that, you personally had a chance to do that. But again, you continue to promote that resource that you have been so active in helping to develop and certainly promote over the last several years.
Yes, and I expect that to continue to increase. It's a great fishery, and more people are taking advantage of it. And I talked to Anthony Morshini. He's Finn's Sport Fishing, and I think he mentioned that on his charters this year they landed something around near 170 sturgeon this year for his customers.
That is incredible.
Yeah, and these charter captains, they're teaching people how to take advantage of the resource here, and like always, we like to share. And Mike, the thing is, the resources, whether it be sturgeon or anything else, are held in the public trust, and everybody should be able to take advantage. Everybody has equal ownership, and should be able to take advantage of the resource.
Is the sturgeon that season's still open, isn't it?
Yes, we got that extended all the way to March 15th. Catch and release now. The harvest season here on the St. Clair River ended September 30th.
Forgive my ignorance. Will that ice up, or does it stay open all winter?
It's variable. We get some flow ice down here in the wintertime, so it's fishable at times, other times not.
Well, another resource that you've been involved in for years is highly dependent on the weather as well, and that's the concept of perch spearing on Lake St. Clair, and it's the only place in Michigan you can do that.
Right, exactly, and you always hope for early ice. With this climate change occurring, sometimes that happens and sometimes not, but again, that is a very unique thing, and obviously I'm involved in some unique things.
I think everything you're involved in is unique, Jim. And if not, you make it so.
Yeah, I hear the beat of a different drummer out there, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very visual, and if you can get a chance to try it sometime, you should.
Now, does that go all the way through the winter, the whole perch spearing season?
Yes, until the end of February.
Okay, so
it starts in early December, maybe December 15th. So it's going to open up pretty soon here. Of course, we don't have hard water yet, but that goes. The spearing season goes, I believe, until the end of February, maybe March 15th. I don't recall right now.
It's not something that most of the people across the state are familiar with, but for you guys in that corner of the state, it's really part of your wintertime outdoor heritage and tradition, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and that was something that I picked up from my grandmother and grandfather back in the 50s and 60s when I was just a young child. So, it's important to carry that on. Again, it's scientifically, it's not harmful to the resource. It's a lot of fun. People should be able to do that. And actually, I feel that, and politically, it's not, spearing isn't quite as acceptable as other angling methods, but I feel that, it should maybe be expanded.
Do you decoy them in, much like you would pike spearing?
Yes. I use about a 4-inch decoy, some of which I carve myself. And I haven't done that in a while. I may pick some of that up, but there's some other people that make decoys locally that you can get from the grocery store, and it works very effectively on perch.
I would think when perch come in, unlike a pike, they probably come in schools.
Sometimes as individuals, it just depends on the day. And in doing so, if you're jigging, a lot of times the smaller fish will be real aggressive, and it's hard to keep the jig away. What the spearing does is when you're decoying, you can be a little more selective on larger fish. And, with the 25 fish limit these days in Michigan, you can put a nice bucket together.
Nothing like, and people have to have experienced this to kind of get it, but there's nothing like sitting there looking at that hole in the ice and watching this underwater world. It's like a big screen TV of real Mother Nature in real life, real time. Yes,
and the fish will teach you how to fish. The first thing is, and this translates into open water, you got to fish where the fish are. The thing that looking through that hole allows you is that there's whether or not there's fish there. So, the first thing you got to do is find some fish. You got to move. So, and then you can see how fish are reacting to the bait and changing presentation. It's just the fish will give you a lesson.
I don't even know if you realize what you just said, but it's so profound that I wrote it down. I'm keeping track of some of the most interesting statements that people have told me here on the air. And I credit it to those people, and I put a date on it. And you just said something, the fish will teach you how to fish. That's going on my list, Jim.
Well, yeah, Mike, God, I've been fishing for 60 years, and the fish are teaching me something new every time I go out.
Only if you are observant enough to notice, and I always say that's my problem. I don't always pick up on what the critters are trying to tell me.
Yeah, they'll send you a message, Mike. You just have to pay attention.
I know. There you go. All right, Jim, listen, always a pleasure. Nice checking up with you. Good fishing, and appreciate all the efforts that you do as far as conservation and protecting our resources and encouraging outdoor recreation. You're a good guy.
Mike, you have a Merry Christmas, and God bless you.
You as well. Jim Felgenauer, by the way, he's actively involved in the St. Clair chapter of Sturgeon for Tomorrow. That website, stclairsturgeon.org, stclairsturgeon.org. We'll take a break here. When we come back, Eric Hilliard of the DNR talking about the Pure Michigan Hunt. This is a really great opportunity. I put in several chances, and I will put in several more, and you'll find out why after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Mastinbrook on WTIQ, 95.3 FM, 1490 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, just to name a few of our 32 affiliates. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. From plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, ductwork cleaning, you name it, the folks from Wilds can take care of it. They can keep your house comfortable and warm and dry and keep everything running smoothly, as they have for me for many years in 2 different houses now. I don't hesitate to give them a call when I have a problem, because their slogan is, whatever it takes. I want to deal with a company who has that mindset, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to make our customers happy, that's what the folks at Wilds are willing to do. And I've seen this time and time again. I welcome them into my home, and I have extremely comfortable advising you to do the same. Their website is wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. Now, I talked about this a couple of times earlier in the show, but the deadline for the Pure Michigan Hunt is coming up. I think the Pure Michigan Hunt is a phenomenal opportunity. It's a great way to get some wonderful tags and some great gear. Eric Hilliard is with the DNR, and he's the guy who's actually, I think he's the guy who's going to end up, well, the computer draws it, but Eric's going to be the guy who announces the winners. And Eric, this year, Avery is spelled Avery. Just keep that in mind, all right?
I will keep that in mind.
You don't sound real convincing.
Well, because I have absolutely no control over whose name gets drawn, it really doesn't matter until it comes out of the machine. But I can guarantee you that if your name is drawn, I will be super happy for you, Mike. I know you've been trying for years now, and so I would celebrate your success.
I appreciate that. I've been trying for years, Eric, because I think it's such a great program. Tell us about it.
It really is a great program, and it's a hunter's dream come true. So we select 3 winners every year. The drawing is next month, so it's right around the corner. And each of those 3 winners is going to walk away with a hunting prize package worth thousands of dollars, including firearms and other outdoor hunting equipment and just some really neat prizes. But the thing that people are usually the most interested in are the tags. So they're going to get that any elk tag. They're going to get a bear tag. They're going to be able to hunt antlerless deer, spring and fall turkey, and then they're also going to get first pick at a managed waterfowl area for a reserved hunt. So it's really the entire package is just a great package taken in its entirety.
Well, the either sex elk, which basically becomes a bull tag, that right there is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the nice thing is you can purchase as many Pure Michigan Hunt applications as you want. I can tell you right now, I just ran the numbers before coming on the show. Right now, there are 53,492 apps that have been purchased by 21,600 applicants. So it looks like most people have probably bought 2 or 3 tags. And because you can purchase as many as you want, you can also transfer the tag. So let's say you want to buy it as a gift for Christmas. You can purchase underneath your own name, and the Pure Michigan Hunt tags are the only ones that you can transfer to an individual of your choosing, should you happen to win. So let's say you buy as a gift for somebody under your name because you don't have access to their driver's license or something, and we draw your name. You can just say, hey, I meant this as a gift for so-and-so, and then they become the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt.
Oh, that's wonderful. I have this image, though, of somebody who intending to buy it as a gift, and then they win. They say, no, I changed my mind. This is mine.
Yeah, and the thing is maybe you're somebody, maybe you don't want to hunt that elk for some reason. I don't know why you wouldn't. But in the event you didn't, and maybe you've got a friend or a relative that does, you can transfer that tag directly to them. You don't have to transfer everything. You could just transfer that bull tag if you wanted to.
Well, and I like applying for Pure Michigan Hunt specifically for that elk tag because, number one, I can apply multiple times, and I figure every time I throw my name in the hat, it increases my odds, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing is if you happen to get that elk tag or even the bear tag, for example, you can hunt in any open unit during the open period. So if you're not having success in one unit and you want to go try another one during that unit's open period, that tag is good in both units.
$5 per application, Eric?
Yep, $5 per application. Enter as many times as you like.
And how do we do this?
So if you go, you can purchase it just like you would any other hunting application at a hunting license retailer, or you can go to michigan.gov/PMH or michigan.gov/Pure Michigan Hunt. And that will take you to the Pure Michigan Hunt page on the DNR website where we have a list of all of our sponsors, the prizes, and then you can click the link to purchase online.
And the deadline is?
The deadline is 11:59 p.m. on December 31st.
And the drawing will be, you haven't set a date, but shortly after that, I think?
Yeah, we usually draw in the first week of January, and then just like the last few years, what we'll do is we're going to have a video that's going to premiere online that basically announces the 3 winners, where we give the first name, last initial, and the last 2 digits of the person's phone number, and then we'll follow up with a phone call after that. And that'll probably be towards the middle to end of January because it takes a little bit of time to produce that.
I will eagerly be awaiting that phone call. I'm watching that video, Eric.
Well, good luck to you, Mike.
I appreciate that. I think it's a great program, Eric. Appreciate you bringing it up to us. Eric Hilliard of the DNR talking about the Pure Michigan Hunt, the website, michigan.gov/PMH or Pure Michigan Hunt. I think I have put in several apps already, and you can bet here in the next couple of weeks I will be doing many more. Can you imagine that? A bull elk tag, a bear tag, a bunch of gear. I mean, it's a no-brainer for $5. We'll take a break. When we come back to this week's Ask Avery segment as we wrap up hour 2 of Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, on WCHT, AM and FM, 600 AM, 95.3 FM. Thank you, Mike Daniels, for putting us on your stations in the UP. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can ask me a question, something you'd like me to answer directly, or I can pass along to somebody in the DNR or whatever. And I think the best way to do this is to send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can also hit me up on the messaging platforms of the social media outlets, but there's so many of them and it's so confusing and I don't always see those. So send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Robert Cook did just that. I don't know if he goes by Rob or Bob, Robert or Bob. He says, I listen to this show as much as possible and generally like the topics. My question is, how do you decide what to talk about every week? I'm going to take generally like. Robert, I appreciate that. Hey, listen, if somebody generally likes what I'm doing, that's all I can ask for. I'll consider that a win. But I think that's a good question because I will admit there are weeks when I come into the studio and I'm thinking, boy, am I talking about the right things this week? And as I said in the first segment of the show this week, I strive to cover as much of the state geographically as possible. And it's tough when you've got a state as big and as diverse as Michigan. But what I do is I look at my interests as a hunter and angler. And I kind of follow the seasons. Obviously, in November, we're going to be talking about firearm deer season. It's not a topic we would talk about in July. We're not talking about ice fishing in July. We're not usually talking about open water trolling in February, although, with the show seasons coming up that time of year, we might. As far as guests, if you've listened to the show, you know that I have certain people that I like to go back to because I value their insight, their wisdom, and their input, and you're looking for people who are good talkers. If somebody has a great idea but they can't communicate that, they're not going to be a good radio guest. Do I sometimes get in the rut of going back to same people over and over? Absolutely. Sure I do. Absolutely. It's something that I am aware of and I certainly try to avoid, but do I fall into that trap? Yes. So what I would recommend is if you as a listener, if there is a topic that you would like me to cover, if there's a part of the state that you would like me to travel to here on the radio show and talk about what's going on in that area, then let me know. Again, the email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And give me your suggestions. I can't guarantee, I can't promise that I will take advantage of them, but I will listen to your suggestions, and I will do it if I can. How about if we leave it at that? I will do it if I can. But 3 hours every week. People say, "Well, man, how do you find something to talk about for 3 hours?" That's not hard at all. When I first started in radio, coming out of television, it's a whole different ballgame. Television is very, in some ways superficial, succinct, fast. You might have a minute and a half to talk about a topic. I remember that. You got a minute and a half package. That's what you can talk about. So when I made the migration over to radio, it was kind of hard to wrap my brain around the fact that, okay, I now have 3 hours broken into 13-minute segments basically to talk about different things. But once once I got used to that format, it's easy. It's like the fastest 3 hours of my week. I sit here in this studio at this microphone talking with what I hoped interesting people about what I hope are interesting topics, and the time just flies. And again, I am able to do this because you, as a listener of the show, as a listener of the podcast, allow me to still at this point in my life basically have a dream job, and I do appreciate that. And Robert Cook, I appreciate you listening to the show and the fact that you generally like the content. I'll take that. I will take that as a compliment. Again, the email address, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. If you have a question for me, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And as always, I need to thank the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Their website, securitycu.org, securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour and come back for hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show with Ken Burzynski. Ken is a member of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. I have much respect for trappers, the art of trapping, the science of trapping, the work that goes into trapping. We'll talk about that. And, of course, we'll wrap up the show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. I have no idea what he has in store this week, but I bet it will be good. And as we move towards noontime, lunchtime, as we're recording the show, they always sound very, very good. That's coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for the introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we work our way through the month of December. Christmas coming up. Have you noticed that? If not, let me be the first to point out that Christmas is just around the corner. And it's easy this time of year to get tied up on a lot of pre-Christmas preparations or shopping, or, like in my case, projects around the house. And I haven't been out hunting in the last week, and I'm kind of sad to say that because I'm missing opportunities. We need to, us, need to get out and decompress, to get away from the job, to get away from the office. Even a job like mine, that I absolutely love my job. But this is actually a surprisingly busy time of year for me as we wrap up one year and move into changes and hopefully improvements for the next year. So I haven't been out, but I need to. I need to get out. I'm thinking about, outdoor opportunities for this time of year. Of course, you've got the late bow season. You've got small game, rabbit season. You've got predator hunting. You've got ice fishing or open water fishing. And then there's trapping. Trapping is something I am absolutely fascinated with. And I know where it started. It goes back to when I was a kid, my dad was a trapper. He used to trap muskrats, primarily. And I remember seeing these big gangs of traps hanging out in the shed. And I remember watching him, go through the preparation of getting these traps ready. And I was too young to go with him at the time. And he'd leave and he'd come back without the traps. And once in a while he'd come back with a muskrat or something else. I remember watching him take care of that skin. And it just, I don't know, it was fascinating. And I have so much respect for trappers. And I'll say this every time I talk about trappers. I believe trappers are the most knowledgeable outdoorsmen and women in the outdoors today. Again, because if you're a gun hunter, all you need is a critter to get within 200 yards. If you're a bow hunter, get them within 30 yards. But a trapper has to do things just right to get an animal to walk through or on a very, very small place. Maybe just a 2-inch circle. And to do that, you have to have an intimate knowledge of the game that you're pursuing. And that's why I have much respect for trappers. It's an art form. Fortunately, not a lost art form, because there are still trappers out there today. The Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association is doing a wonderful job in keeping this tradition alive and in sharing this information with others. Ken Burzynski is a member of the MTPCA. Their website is mtpca.com, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ken, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. And listen, you've been out on the trap line. In fact, when I talked to you yesterday, you were just getting ready to head out, huh?
Actually, I kind of held off today till I get done with this, and then I'm taking off. I have not got out this year yet. I'm, we've had, other things going, other seasons going on, but now we're running, so this is it. I'm getting ready to go.
And this is, this is normally the time of year, I think, once we get past firearm deer season, when people really start to get serious about trapping.
Yes. All seasons are pretty much on. You had a Fisher season going on, Fisher and Martin season going on right now in the UP. You got a Bobcat season starting up there too, and we've got a Bobcat season starting in several units, to the north. I would say lower upper Michigan. So, and then you've got the canine seasons on. You got water trappings on. So we're in full swing right now. Most of the guys and gals out there.
When I hear you talking about the different trapping opportunities, there's a lot of potential targets out there.
Yes, there are. It all depends on how you want to target it. Some's land trapping, some is water trapping, or some do a mix of both. Depends how you want to go with it, and what's your favorite thing to do, so to speak. It's all going right now. That's all I can say.
And are all of these different types of trapping, are they distinctly different? Or if you are a good muskrat trapper, you're automatically a good coyote trapper? How does this all work together, Ken?
I would say learning curves. As a muskrat trapper, not saying it's not difficult, not saying that it is difficult. But you're dealing with water, different elements, things like that. And then when you get into canines, gray fox, red fox, coyotes, there's a learning curve in there. You're on dry land. You're probably putting on more miles. You're using a vehicle to do so. Not saying you're not with water trapping, boats, cars, trucks, quads. Or just plain old pounding the ground with your feet. A lot of guys do that. So there is a difference, and there's a different style of trap that you use. When you get into some water trapping, you can possibly use some of the same traps as water trapping for, let's say, raccoons or mink. When you get into canine, a little bit different. You're using a different style of trap. There's a variant in there and a different style of lure if you're using lure or bait. So there's equipment-wise, it can be. You can fill a barn full of equipment if you if you're really into it.
Well, and you make an interesting point too. Say if you're trapping muskrats in a ditch, you kind of got it narrowed down. They're going to be in that ditch. But if you're trapping coyotes or something else, man, you got the whole world open to you.
Yes, you do. What you kind of look for is you've got to understand where you're at, understand their travel pathways, corridors, and funnel points. Sometimes in between lakes and rivers, farm lanes, crop change, different in the woods. A lot of guys that are up in the UP, they're trapping deep woods. And that's a lot of guys have difficulty with that, and not difficulty with farmland and vice versa. It's topography, knowing your topography of the land. And once you kind of figure that out, and I am learning every day, Mike, I am learning every day. I'm getting showed something new every day of what the critters out there are showing me. But you did hit on a good point. If you're a trapper, it's going to make you a better hunter year-round. The guys are out there, feet are on the ground. We're moving. We're looking in the swamps and the ditches and the fields. Some guys are working at traveling, doing it at night. I don't do that anymore, but some guys still do, job-wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot.
Well, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, if you're going to get into trapping and be serious about it, you're going to spend some time out there. You're going to get cold. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to spend some long hours because legally and ethically, you have a responsibility to be out there and check those traps.
Yes, you do. Once they get set, you're on it. You have that responsibility to do it. And some people do, and I've got to say, set a big line out and you end up getting sick or the flu. You still have that responsibility. Your choice what you want to do at that point in time. A lot of guys, start pulling the line till they get better to go back out. A lot of guys gut it out and just go. But yeah, that's a responsibility. Some guys are trapping through the whole season, every day. I kind of run it in segments. And generally I trap first, skin my animals, put them in the freezer, and then when everything slows down or the weather turns sour, then I bring them out, then I process them, as far as fleshing and boarding them and drying them and get them ready. I'm trapping first and putting up first, second. That's kind of how that's my thing to do. A lot of guys are different. They're catching, skinning, and putting them up, all the time. That makes for a long day. You never know what you're going to expect out there.
It's, it's an interesting, and you just in your last statement there, you bring up so many questions. But Ken, I got to take a break. Okay, we're coming up on a break. We're talking with Ken Burzynski, a trapper, a member of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. Their website, mtpca.com. MTPCA, Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, mtpca.com. And Ken brings up a lot more questions that I want to follow up on after the break. Like for example, what does it take to process these animals? And he talked about you never know what you're going to walk up on. Isn't that part of the coolness of trapping? When you get to your line, is there going to be something in that trap? Is it going to be something you didn't expect? And what if it's not a legal target? Can you release that animal? Well, all those questions and more and answers coming up from Ken Burzynski after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Holland on WHTC. It's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. Although that outdoor getaway right now is looking kind of cold and snowy and not someplace I really want to be hanging out there right now. But this time of year, if you need snow removal, the folks from Reader can help you out with that as well. And looking down the road, it's not too early. I know it seems like a long ways off, but it's not too early to start thinking about your landscaping projects for next year and your maintenance projects for next year as well. Reader can take care of both of them for you. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to mtpca.com. mtpca.com is the website of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. Ken Burzynski is a member of that group. Ken, how long have you been trapping?
So, Mike, I've been trapping since 1968. I think that's about when we could put a pin on the calendar. So, yeah, I've been kind of at it a long time, and again, still learning new things, traveling a little bit with it. You know, you can pretty much travel anywhere to probably trap in certain areas, but the best place to do it right now is Michigan. So, yeah, so we're getting ready to take off in Michigan here pretty soon. I'll probably start my canine line, and then kind of intermix it a little bit with, some water lines. So mink, raccoon, muskrat. And again, we're talking before. You don't know, as your season gets going and as you get your traps out, you're anticipating, what you're trying to catch. But some days you just have that bumper day, and it's like, wow, what a great day. And then you get home, and then kind of the work ends again, because then you have to prep all the animals. So it's a skinning and and taking care of it. And some of the animals are used for meat. Muskrat. Some people like raccoons. So some people would like some of that. So yeah, then it can make for a long day, and it can make for a long week and season. You got to kind of prepare yourself for that.
How specific can you be when you target? Like when you put out a trap, you know what you're looking for, but, and this is kind of what the anti-trappers will say sometime, well, it's out there and it can take anything that comes along. I mean, how do you try to prevent that, Ken?
Well, there's certain ways to setting up your trap, and also certain traps to use, to possibly, let's say you do get an accidental catch, where you can release it unharmed. But, just learning how to set that trap up, not just willy-nilly in any old way to catch anything that comes down the pike. That's kind of the art of it. Water trapping is one thing, underwater, a lot of sets. Your land trapping, that's kind of another thing too, different. Certain animals will come to a certain set. Other animals will stay away from it. If you use a kind of a sweet type of a bait or a lure, not saying every time, but you can avoid, certain accidental catches. If you're targeting one specific animal, then you can go to a bait and a lure for that animal specifically. Not saying you will not catch something else, that has a curiosity level that comes into that. But that's not your target animal. That's not what you're looking for. So that kind of comes in with the art and the learning factor and kind of everything that goes with that. So
You talk about releasing animals. I think that's a surprise to a lot of people who are uneducated. I mean, the antis would have us believe once you catch an animal in a trap, that animal's dead. But that's not the case, is it, Ken?
No, that's not the case. Can we use bigger traps? Yes, we can. Most of the traps that we are looking at, have a specific, how you want to say, a design for the animal that you're looking to catch. Will all animals be released? I will say not all. You might harm some. That factor is in there. But the great factor is, yes, you can release, again, with a leg hold trap. Any of the killer traps that they use, and I don't want to say killer traps, but that's what they're designed to do. Mm-hmm. Most of those are used underwater. So you're looking to catch that beaver or that otter or possibly that mink, and that's underwater. We're on land, you're looking at a different trap, and there's a lot of laminated traps, which means that the jaws on them are wider. Some guys and gals use a padded trap to where you can, it's rubber padded, so you're really not going to have that much harm or damage to the animal that you catch accidentally. If you're kind of trapping in and around, let's say, a town or a city, beware, because you don't know what's coming out of there. It could be dogs, could be cats. So, a lot of guys that are in close to that area, they still have permission to trap, that are still on the outside of the city or township limits. A lot of the guys are pretty thoughtful for that because, they don't want to be hanging that stuff up in the traps either.
Well, and thank God for those trappers around those populated areas, because you guys do a wonderful job of population control and keeping nuisance animals down.
Yes. I can only speak for myself out here where I'm kind of at. I get more thumbs up from the deer hunters around here for working on the coyote population. And you know what? A lot of times, too, I will get calls from farmers. Their barns, all of a sudden, they've got a gigantic influx of raccoons in their barn. It's like, get these guys out. So, we can move in there. And if you use the right trap, there are some traps out there that are called dog-proof traps, that specifically for raccoons. And that's what you use with that right bait. You can go, I have caught raccoons underneath the porches of people's houses. And it's like they're very thankful to get rid of that guy. So it's kind of, it helps keep the disease down too. I've had a little uptick of distemper in my area. I just started noticing it. So it's going to, that's going to affect a lot of things too. I think as trappers out there, what little dent we put in that wildlife population actually makes that wildlife population more healthy in the long run. We could be taking out some diseased animals and thinning it down so disease does not get rampant. So I kind of look at us as kind of stewards of the land. Other people will think different, but as trappers, that's what we do.
What do you see that makes you aware there's distemper out there?
Usually a lot of times how I first discover it is, I'm seeing raccoons that are in the waterways that are deceased. And there's no reason for a raccoon to be laying in water deceased. It's like, okay, maybe old age. But these are, medium-sized raccoons.
Mm-hmm.
So old age is not a factor. Maybe, they got in a scrap with something, a coyote or a dog or something like that. But generally not. So when you start seeing them, it's like it's there. It is there. And when you start seeing 4 or 5, maybe in the ditch, you've got it. And that distemper, it comes in 2 forms. There's a canine and a feline. And it also, that can affect other animals too. It can affect mink, fisher, marten, So, it can just, rip through the wildlife and put a big dent in it. Mother Nature, by no means, we all know, is not kind. She can be cruel at times. So, we've got to be aware of that. And when you start seeing that, you've got, how you want to say, it's going. Will it go for a whole year? It might go. It might hold over for another year. In canines last year, I'd come across, in a certain area, I come across mange. So I had 5 coyotes that were manged up pretty bad. Hopefully this year when I get into that area, I had hopefully taken out those 5 and maybe controlled it a little bit more. It's nothing worse than seeing an animal that is, it takes them a long time to pass, if not dispatched. So I'd rather take them out of the system than rather than have them go through life and suffer, or spread their disease to other animals.
Sure. What's the toughest animal? What's the hardest animal to catch that you pursue?
Oh, there's always that one coyote or 2 coyotes. Those guys can be pretty tricky. Sometimes they've been educated by other people. Sometimes they're just weary. I think the guy who has the hardest coyotes to trap, if he has a predator that is working on, let's say, in sheep or cattle or whatever it is, that guy's costing that rancher some money. And he really, really has to pull all the tricks out, to try to corral that guy. But coyotes, they can be very, very finicky. Not saying other ones too.
Sure.
I've had some very, very big raccoons that just avoid everything. And
they're old and wise.
They're old and wise, and that's how they get that way. And they got a real comfortable place to stay. And fox can be kind of finicky too. Those guys, they just have a sense of smell and a vision that is by far unbelievable.
Ken, listen, I want to talk a lot more about this, but we're out of time. Can I offer you the coveted third segment? Do you have a few more minutes for me?
Sure do.
Perfect. We're talking with Ken Burzynski of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, MTPCA.com. He gets the coveted third with Charlie is something we haven't done for several weeks now, so that tells you just how interesting I find Ken's conversation to be, and we'll learn more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ. It's 97.7 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM 790 AM 100.5 FM. Excuse me, I'm in studios of WSGW right now. But for this 3 hours, one small corner of the building is called the Outdoor Magazine Studio, and I have a logo behind me to prove that. I'm here with Charlie Rube, doing a wonderful job as always. The weather, the weather has the crowd down a little bit today, Charlie. Normally, they line the driveway and they're chanting, "Charlie, Charlie," and some of them are even holding signs and banners. And I've seen probably 75, 100 people out here before. But as cold as it is today and snowy, it's down to a couple dozen. And we should go take them some coffee or something, Charlie, because they're hardcore. So, Charlie, appreciate your help. as always. We'll give them the rest of the Mike Avery Hunter Sticks from Michigan brand. Well, there's not enough to go around because we ate them. I want to wrap up my conversation. Oh, this segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website, mucc.org. That's mucc.org. And a reminder, if you want to save 25% on your MUCC membership, I've got a way to do that. Go to mucc.org and use the promo code MIKE, all caps, M-I-K-E, and save 25%, either on your renewal or signing up for the first time. In fact, I used my own promo code to save on my renewal, so it works. I know it does. mucc.org. Wrapping up our conversation now about trapping with Ken Burzynski of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, MTPCA.com. Ken, I find this topic absolutely fascinating. I know it's a lot of work. I know it takes a lot of knowledge, but let's talk about this process of what do you do with the animals after you trap them, after you get them?
Oh, okay. Generally, they come back home, they come into the barn, the shop, or, wherever it is. The skinning takes place, and then usually fleshing and, prepping that pelt, to put on a skinning board or on a board, which means flesh, take all the meat, flesh off of it so you just have hide, and then placing on a board to dry. And there's different types of boards. There's boards for coyotes, fox, beaver, mink. Some use wire. Some use wood. And then all this process, it gets done. You have now a finished hide that is now ready to go to market. And then, you have to find a place to, a fur buyer, or ship them out to a market, wherever. The prep on that too is, a little different. Again, it's the learning curve. But if you can get, anybody starting this new or wants to get into this new, hit a convention, find somebody that's a trapper. It just cuts the learning curve right down to almost, I can't say a flat line, but it makes it a lot easier. And you know what? Get the kids involved in it. We're seeing a lot of kids now starting to come out. This year, there has been the last couple of years has been a giant uptick in women starting to trap. It is kind of like, wow, and these gals are cool. That's all I can say.
And tough, and very tough, because I think trappers in general, I think you guys are tough.
Well, you know what? If you were to meet some of the girls, you go, there's no way. You just wouldn't believe it. But some of them are, and they're very, very good at it. But, it's the process. You're doing that time, and you're, harvesting that animal, finish it out to the end, get it to the market, or if, you have a diseased animal, dispose of it correctly. That's kind of what trapping is kind of all about. Is it tough? Yes, it can be.
Is this something to, excuse me, is this a money-making effort, or is this a labor of love?
It's a combo. It's a combination. There's some guys out there that are, cutting their teeth on a living with it. Another thing, it's a labor of love. It's just something that's just in your blood. I've walked away from it for a little while, and I couldn't live without it. I had to come right back to it. Kind of like maybe with you and your dad with muskrat trapping. I think, Mike, you need to do a ride along with a trapper sometime. I'll try to help you out.
I actually have done that, and it was fascinating. It's not something, to be honest with you, that I think I have the time to do and do right. But I still, I can't think about trapping or talk to a trapper without just absolutely being enamored with the topic, and with you folks who do it. I am enthralled by it, I guess.
Some guys go and take it for the full season, from the beginning to the end. Some guys just trap 1 or 2 weeks of the year or a season. And okay, are you making a ton of money? No. Is fur still valuable? Yes. That's the misconception. Fur is a lot more valuable than any of the fax fur that we have out there. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It is warm. Don't let anybody kid you. Fashionable, it is in certain circles, but the persona that everybody's getting, it's cruel.
Ken, you and I could have talked the whole hour. I got to go. I got to let you go, but we could have done the whole hour, and maybe next time we'll do that. Ken Burzynski, appreciate your time. Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, MTPCA.com. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. Glad to have you along with us. This wouldn't be possible without you listening, without your support and following me on social media. I do appreciate it. Also appreciate wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, good friend of mine, and an absolute master when it comes to cooking up fish and wild game, and just an all-around good guy as well. David, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing actually very well, Michael. How about yourself?
I'm doing real good on a cold, snowy morning here, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's bright and sunny.
It is now as I look out the window of the studio. Yeah. What have you been up to? Anything fun?
Oh, kind of work is taking precedent over hunting for everybody.
I was just saying that, yes.
They haven't had a chance to get out. I feel bad for them. It's just that everybody's like short of help, and they just can't get away.
Short on help, and like in my business at least, this is a real busy time of year. You're wrapping up one year, you're getting ready to move into another, and I haven't been out in the last week, and I'm feeling bad about it too. But sometimes life gets in the way of life.
You're right about that. So, but anyways, how about a nice hearty comfort food meal?
Yes.
About a venison Salisbury steak.
Perfect.
It's about as comforting as meatloaf or a good stew. So you need 2 pounds of ground venison, and it's going to be lean, of course, anyway. So, but you're going to have to try to make it so that it's a little juicier. So you're going to need some diced up onions, maybe 2 of them, 3 eggs about or so for 2 pounds, a lot of fresh ground pepper, maybe a small amount of kosher salt or regular table salt, 1 to 2 cups of breadcrumbs, and either a teaspoon of Italian spice or a half a teaspoon each of basil and oregano. It just depends on what your flavor requirements are. So mix all the ingredients together. And if it's a little dry, you can moisten it up with some milk. And if it's a little too moist from all the other ingredients, you could just put a little more breadcrumbs in it. And you want to form it into equal-sized oblong packets, little patties like so, kind of football shaped. And so in a nice large saute pan, you're going to probably have to do this in batches with a little bit of olive oil or vegetable oil. Brown it on both sides kind of slowly, and then place them in an oven-proof baking dish like a casserole. Now for a sauce, I like to use a cup of red wine. It's an optional. If you don't have it, to me, it just puts a lot of body into a sauce, to give it a real nice flavor. Some more fresh ground pepper, and 2 to 3 medium onions diced up, or sliced, and cut them in half and then slice them kind of thin. And then you want to brown those off a little bit just to get them nice and tan. It might take 4 or 5 minutes to do that. And if you're using the wine, add that and then stir that real good. And all of them little flavor particles that are stuck to the bottom of the pan, they're going to come up, bring it to a kind of a nice rollicking boil there, and then scrape the bottom of the pan. And I like to use jarred beef gravy if you're making this at home. But if you wanted to, you could use water and better than bouillon and cornstarch to thicken up your sauce. It's up to you. It'd be a little less expensive, but not much. But the time and energy you're going to put into using the jarred gravy, which tastes very well anyway. So now you're going to add the spices and then taste after you put the gravy in it. Bring it back up to a boil. Taste it. If this is to your flavor liking, pour it over the patties and bake at 350 degrees uncovered for about an hour. You want to kind of reduce that down a little bit, and then that'll concentrate the flavor. And, mashed potatoes would go good with this, or buttered noodles. Any kind of a starch that you prefer and vegetable would just go along great. Now, you could make this in advance at home, and if you wanted to take it to deer camp, it freezes very well. Or if you're out, going snowmobiling or something like that, put it in a Dutch oven, put it over a fire, warm it up slowly. It'll warm you right up from the inside and out.
It does sound good, that's for sure. It does sound good. David, what about the restaurant, Oscar and Joey's? What are your hours these days?
Thursday, through Sunday. It's all. We just, like I've been saying all along, we just can't get enough help. We open it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 4 and serve until 10. And then on Sunday, we open at 1 and serve until 9.
Well, wonderful.
And I'll tell you what, the half we got is wore out by Sunday.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you guys are able to get open and all, Dave, and I need to get down there and see you.
I wish you would.
I will plan on it. Maybe I'll bring a bunch of people with me, but I'll call you first.
Oh, good idea. What about your elders? Are they going to do it?
That's what I was just thinking about. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And on Thursday night would be great.
All right, Dave, that sounds good. You and I will be in touch as we always are, but we'll talk again soon.
All right. If you get out, Mike, have a good time.
I will have a good time. You as well, my friend. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. I appreciate you being along. Hey, listen, reach out to me anytime. The email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. The website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. You can find me on most of the social media outlets, except TikTok. I think TikTok's stupid. But you can find me just about everywhere else. Mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I hope you get a chance to slow down a little bit, decompress, get outdoors, have some fun. If you do, share your pictures with me. Send them to the Facebook page, and I'll post them. And I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.